Good morning, everyone. My name is Pranav, and today I'm presenting my research on heart rate variability and parasympathetic tone in response to aerobic exercise intensity in older athletes. Essentially, what I'm asking is how different levels of effort change the way the aging heart recovers. To understand this, think of your nervous system as a car. You have a gas pedal for stress, which we call the sympathetic system. And what we're going to focus on is the brake pedal, which is for recovery. And we call this the parasympathetic system. This system does things like slow down the heart and respiratory rate. We measure the strength of that brake using heart rate variability, or as I'm going to abbreviate it, HRV. And in terms of interpretation, high variability means that your heart is resilient and can bounce back from changes really quickly. And low variability means that you're stuck on the gas pedal. As we age, our brakes naturally get a bit stiffer, which means our hearts don't always bounce back as quickly as they did, maybe say in our 20s or our teens. This matters a lot because more and more people over the age of 35, over the age of 40, people middle age to elderly are starting to compete in endurance sports in an effort to stay healthy. But more training isn't always better in terms of our health. If we ignore our heart's recovery signals, we risk getting stuck on sympathetic dominance, which is essentially a permanent or long-term state of physiological stress. Because older hearts often lack that autonomic flexibility that younger ones have, understanding these signals is one of the few ways that we can prevent some of that invisible damage from chronic overstrain before it becomes a clinical issue and we need to go to something like the doctors. My goal is to use HRV to find that sweet spot where older athletes can maximize their performance without sacrificing their long-term cardiovascular health. I analyzed 5 unique cases ranging from Tai Chi masters to Ironman athletes, and the contrast was significant. In extreme endurance cases, like let's say a 40-day Ironman challenge, the heart's recovery system was suppressed by nearly 40% for multiple days on end and couldn't bounce back between these consecutive races. However, if we take moderate intensity activities like Tai Chi, that brake pedal actually became 12% more efficient during that event, as opposed to even say something like traditional cycling. This reveals that for older athletes, high intensity exercises drain that recovery battery. And while moderate intensity exercises actually act as a charger. Ultimately, this tells us that moderate exercise isn't just an easy day. It's a vital physiological tool that maintains the autonomic balance of our body and keeps our aging hearts resilient. Here are my sources. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a good day.
Hi, my name is Manasvi Kola. Every year, the film industry invests billions of dollars. Yet, most films fail financially. This raises an important question. Can AI reduce financial risk by predicting box office success? My research explores whether ensemble machine learning models can improve prediction accuracy compared to traditional methods. Most films fail financially, but why? First, there is high uncertainty in outcomes. Second, traditional models oversimplify reality. And third, streaming has made audience behavior even more unpredictable. This makes accurate forecasting extremely difficult. As someone interested in both finance and film, I've always wondered why billion-dollar decisions in the entertainment industry are still driven by uncertainty. To address this, I built a dataset of 978 films from 2010 to 2025. I analyzed key features like budget, genre, star power, director reputation, and release timing. Then I compared 3 models like linear regression, random forest, XGBoost, all evaluated using RMSE, MAE, and R squared with cross-validation. The results were clear. Ensemble models significantly outperform traditional methods. XGBoost improved prediction accuracy by 16.8%. The most important predictors were budget, star power, and release timing. This shows that success is not random. It follows patterns AI can learn. This research shows that AI can transform film investment. From guesswork into data-driven decision-making, it can help studios invest smarter and help independent filmmakers pitch projects with data-backed insights. This work is supported by recent peer-reviewed research in AI and film studies on AI-driven film forecasting. Particularly work on ensemble models and predictive features, full references are provided here. Because in the future of film, success won't just be predicted, it will be engineered. Also, it won't just depend on creativity, it will depend on how well we understand it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to pitch my research topic.
Hi, I'm Audrey, and this is my research pitch. Artificial intelligence in healthcare promises efficiency and improves patient health outcomes. At the same time, low income communities continue to face persistent healthcare disparities. These communities receive high rates of chronic illness and mental health issues. I chose my question because low income communities are often excluded from research, despite facing the greatest burdens. I noticed two problems. First, while AI has the potential to improve the quality of care, it may do little to address these inequities. Second, while AI is being integrated into hospitals, its impact on these specific communities remains understudied. Therefore, through my research, I want to ensure that AI deployment serves these marginalized communities without leaving them behind. My guiding research question is, how does the implementation of artificial intelligence in a low resource healthcare setting impact diagnostic accuracy and mortality rates compared to traditional care without AI? For this question, I identified three themes. First, patient health outcomes. AI has the potential to improve the accuracy and efficiency for patient monitoring and diagnosis. We will measure these effects after AI is deployed in a low income hospital setting. Second, implementation barriers in low resource settings. Introducing AI into low resource settings isn't simple. Hospitals may lack the infrastructure and training needed to use these tools effectively. And third, bias in healthcare inequity. Because artificial intelligence systems rely on existing data, they can reflect underlying inequalities. If not carefully designed and implemented, these tools could reinforce disparities instead of reducing them. These concerns are especially important in vulnerable populations. My study, prioritizing quantitative data and a transformative worldview, aims to measure real-world impact in a healthcare setting serving low-income patients. Ultimately, this work seeks to provide insights for how we can ensure AI is a tool that improves health for everyone, including the low-income communities. Here are my references. Thank you so much for listening.
Imagine you're sleeping peacefully in your cozy bed, and then suddenly you're coughing and gasping awake, trying to hammer your chest, trying to stop. This is what life is like for millions of Americans today, and is rapidly increasing. Hi, my name is Maxwell Wang, and today I'll be discussing AI in determining orthodontic surgery candidacy for obstructive sleep apnea and patient outcomes. So first off, what is obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA? OSA is an increasingly common sleep disorder characterized by the blockage of the airway during sleep, causing issues such as fragmented sleep, hypoxia, and choking. It also increases risks for diabetes, cardiac vascular disease, decrease lack of sleepiness, and increased stroke, and also decreased quality of life. It affects over 80 million Americans today, and over 80% of people with moderate to severe sleep apnea are undiagnosed. Current treatments include CPAP, or continuous positive airway pressure, which is the gold standard. However, many people are intolerant to this treatment, forcing them to turn to other forms of treatment, which is surgery. So the problem with orthodontic surgery is that there's high variability in outcomes in patients. Most patients have major medical issues, and surgical decision making heavily relies on subjective expertise, which leads to my question: will AI assisted clinicians be more effective at diagnosing patients and improving patient outcomes? So across the research I've done, I found that AI has been extremely effective at diagnosing and screening based on imaging. However, this is based on limited ethnic populations and also retrospective, meaning it's not implemented in clinics. AI has also been shown to be extremely good at surgical planning and predicting outcomes. However, this is limited to certain age populations and also the ethnic populations as well. Surgery has also been shown to be one of the most effective treatments for sleep apnea, making it one of the most cost-effective ways to treat it. Sleep apnea is also increasing public health crisis, causing more than $150 billion in the U.S. economy due to the health risks associated with sleep apnea, which is why being able to determine a more effective way to determine sleep apnea as well as treat it is ever more important. Thank you for listening.
Imagine lying awake at 3 a.m., your chest tight, negative thoughts racing and plaguing your mind. Everything feels too much, too hard, too overwhelming. You try to reach out into the inky black nothingness around you, but no one is there, and the world just keeps moving. For millions of adolescents and young adults, this is everyday life. Hi, I'm Angelina, and why is my screen? Hi, my name is Angelina, and like many teens, I've seen friends struggle with stress and anxiety, which made me wonder how we can actually support struggling adolescents. Anxiety and depression are mental health disorders that affect how people feel, think, and function. Anxiety brings excessive worry, and depression causes persistent sadness or loss of interest. These conditions are rising among adolescents, but therapy isn't always accessible due to cost, stigma, or limited providers. That's why many are turning to AI-based tools like chatbots and virtual reality programs, which can provide support anytime, anywhere. In fact, about 1 in 5 adolescents experiences a mental health disorder each year, and many don't receive the treatment they need. So, for a growing number of adolescents, these tools aren't just convenient, they may be the only support available at that moment. But not all tools work the same way. Some are easier to access, some are more engaging, and some raise serious concerns about safety and reliability. So as a result, understanding these differences is critical and may actually support someone, especially if this may have a lasting impact on their mental health. Two of the most prominent tools are AI chatbots and virtual reality therapy. Chatbots are available anytime on digital devices, while VR creates immersive simulated experiences. But most research studies evaluate these tools separately, making it hard to understand how they actually compare. So I looked across multiple studies to identify key patterns, because if we're going to rely on these tools, we need to understand not just if they work, but how they work and where they fall short. First, both show improvements in anxiety and depression, often measured using standardized scales. Second, chatbots are highly accessible, but many users drop off over time, while VR creates stronger engagement but requires structured sessions and can cause discomfort. And third, there are practical limitations. Chatbots raise safety concerns, while VR is limited by cost and access. So, while both tools show promise, they offer very different strengths and trade-offs. Because when someone is at their lowest, like that moment at 3 a.m., the kind of support they turn to can shape whether they feel heard, helped, or left behind. With clearer comparisons, we can move forward toward more effective, accessible support for young people with growing minds, so we can better assist those who feel that way every single day. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Kavya Krishnasamy, and my research explores the question, can yoga help reduce the cholesterol-related side effects of carbamazepine, which is a seizure medication in epilepsy patients? So this question actually started as a really normal moment. I was watching the Super Bowl with my family when a commercial for carbamazepine came on. At first, it felt reassuring. Calm music, smiling, families, and a message about stability and control. But then, in the final seconds, the tone shifted. The side effects started listing. High cholesterol, dizziness, fatigue, aplastic anemia, blistering, liver complications. The list was endless. And I remember thinking, if this medication is helping control seizures, what is it doing to the rest of our body? So a little bit about epilepsy. It affects around 50 million people worldwide, and medications like carbamazepine are essential because they prevent seizures from stabilizing brain activity. But research shows that they can also increase cholesterol, raising long-term health risks like cardiovascular disease. For many patients, this isn't just about seizures, it's about their long-term health. So I looked beyond medication to a non-pharmacological approach, yoga. Yoga reduces stress and lowers cortisol, which plays a role in how the body processes cholesterol. And what I found was a clear pattern. Carbamazepine works quickly and effectively for seizure control, but it can increase cholesterol over time. Yoga works more gradually, but it improves cholesterol levels and reduces stress. So instead of choosing one over the other, the most effective approach may be combining both. Medication provides immediate seizure control, while yoga helps reduce long-term side effects. And because treating epilepsy shouldn't just be about stopping seizures, it should also protect a patient's long-term health. Here are my sources.
Good evening. My name is Valencia Huang, and tonight I'm excited to tell you about the potential of artificial intelligence as an innovative and accessible solution for helping vulnerable populations. Imagine no childhood memories, not of bright colors and familiar faces, but blurred silhouettes and confusion. Unfortunately, for a proportion of the 450 million children living with some sort of vision impairment, those in low-resource settings face a greater challenge. Let's take this little girl. I'll name her Nia, for example. Due to limited access of eye professionals and diagnostic equipment near her home, eye conditions go undetected. Without early diagnosis, treatable conditions can worsen, leading to the permanent vision loss and developmental issues. In fact, around 40% of childhood blindness is preventable. But what if there is an affordable and accessible way to close this serious detection gap? My research aims to explore just that with the question, how effective is artificial intelligence on mobile applications for early diagnosis of pediatric eye conditions in low-resource settings? Now, what exactly will my research cover? First off, I plan to evaluate the feasibility of implementing artificial intelligence in low-resource settings. This theme looks at how practical it is to use AI on smartphone vision screenings in the real world for areas with limited resources. Below, these studies examine the reliability, ease of use, and pilot testing in rural or low-income areas, with the overall goal to see if these solutions can actually be applied where professional diagnosis is limited. However, a tool cannot be used if it isn't even accurate. So, a subtheme includes the accuracy of AI-based tools for detecting these pediatric eye diseases. These sources focus on whether these technologies can correctly identify conditions such as myopia, strabismus, and cataracts compared to traditional clinical methods. Furthermore, my research will also explore whether current tools can be expanded to larger populations and maintained over time. They focus on the long-term sustainability and potential of widespread adoption of AI applications, aiming to determine if these systems can improve long-term vision screening access. As someone who requires corrective lenses, and I see some of y'all also have glasses, but lives in a developed country, I believe we often take the gift of clear sight for granted. Low resource regions around the world are not so lucky, and as optic conditions are still a pressing problem in the vulnerable population, it is crucial to detect these conditions early on and combat them. By applying artificial intelligence on accessible mobile devices, we have the opportunity to give every child, no matter where, the chance to see the world clearly. So, we can prevent cases like Nia's, because no girl or boy deserves to have their independence, confidence, and the face of their mother and father stolen from them. Thank you so much.
So, uh, so imagine while you're asleep tonight, you stop breathing. Not once, not twice, but 50 times an hour. Now, imagine that this has been happening to you for years, and while it's quietly ruining your sleep, it's also silently damaging one of your most vital organs, your liver. And this is what is happening to millions of people who live with both sleep apnea and fatty liver disease. And it's why I'm standing here today. My research asks a simple question. Can a sleep machine potentially save your liver. So, as I just described, sleep apnea is when you repeatedly stop breathing in your sleep. But the second problem that often tags along fatty liver or NAFLD is when your liver gets clogged with fat. It can become swollen, inflamed, and over time, it can eventually harden into a permanent scarring called cirrhosis. Now, what do these conditions have to do with each other, you might ask? So, if the liver is repeatedly starved of oxygen during the night, it responds by becoming inflamed and stressed. This stress then subsequently disrupts how the liver processes fat, thus leading to fatty liver disease. Now, why should you care for this problem? Because this isn't rare at all. 1 in 3 of the adults you know probably have fatty liver. And if they have sleep apnea, their risk of serious liver damage jumps to nearly 1 in 2. If we ignore this, we're looking at a future with more cirrhosis, more liver transplants, and billions in healthcare costs. Right now, we treat these two conditions as separate problems, but if sleep apnea is actively driving the liver damage, then fixing the sleep apnea should stop the liver disease in its tracks. We already have a treatment for sleep apnea. It's called CPAP. It's basically a little pump that pushes air into the throat to keep it open all night. Thus asking, if we treat sleep apnea aggressively with CPAP, can we also treat the liver by fixing the breathing? Because if we can prove that one therapy can tackle both problems at the same time, then patients with this dangerous combination wouldn't have to fight two separate battles. To answer that question, we're looking at 3 major areas. First of all, oxygen. If we give patients steady oxygen all night, do those stress signals to the liver actually turn off? Second, blood tests. We can measure liver health with simple blood draws. Over time, do the patient's numbers get better? And third, the fat itself. There's a special kind of ultrasound that can actually see how much fat is sitting inside the liver. Does using CPAP make that fat go away? So what if the little machine that's just sitting on someone's nightstand isn't just helping them sleep? It's actually healing their vital organs. Potentially, we can change the way millions of patients are being cared for at the moment right now. Thank you, and these are my references.
Hello, my name is Alex Figueroa, and this is my pitch for a literature review of assessing AI's potential to identify CD8 plus cells in colorectal cancer. But first, a story. Let me introduce you to Farmer John. All is well on his farm until one day a disease begins to spread and kill his plants and animals. Over time, it worsens until he has nearly nothing left. Then, a miracle happens. He is told that somewhere in his fields, hidden within massive haystacks, there are tiny needles that contain a treatment, one of the few tools that he can use to help fight back against the disease that is ravaging his farm. So he searches and searches, and while he does find a few by hand, it's not enough. Over time, John's farm collapses and fails because of the disease. This story is a reflection of exactly what's happening in the bodies of colorectal cancer patients, an aggressive colon cancer that is the third most diagnosed cancer worldwide and is responsible for over 900,000 deaths annually. In this scenario, John's farm represents the human body. The disease killing his farm is the cancer itself. The haystacks are the tumor microenvironment, and finally, the important needles are these small cells called CD8 plus tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes, which are tiny immune cells with the ability to combat the spread of tumors. Just like how John meticulously picked through the hay to find needles, pathologists currently examine stained tissue samples under a microscope to find these cells, which are also important biomarkers. While the process does work, it is slow and very prone to error. Some may say it's a job that's as hard as finding a needle in a haystack. Now imagine giving Farmer John a tool. Not something to replace him, just something to assist him. Something that can scan each haystack and guide him towards where the needles really are. For pathologists, that tool is a convolutional neural network, a type of AI specifically made to identify patterns throughout datasets, a process shown in the picture on the slide. And this is where the research becomes really interesting. On one hand, CNN significantly helped the search for CD8 plus cells. They detect CD8 plus cells more quickly than humans, improve consistency, and reduce the likelihood of missing them, a fact backed by many testifying pathologists across studies. At the same time, there are limitations. CNNs can't find every cell, no model achieves perfect accuracy, and errors occur even when used alongside experts, a recurring pattern through nearly all studies. So what does this mean? It means we're in a transition. We're in a transition from a system where John has to pick through the haystacks alone to one where he is supported by tools that can detect needles with him. But because in the end, this isn't about hay or needles. It's about using modern technology to fight a chronic disease and give real people real hope for the chance of survival. That is the reason this review is so important. Here is my bibliography, and thank you all for listening.
Thinking about the questions, I did want to announce the winners of our pitch presentation. I can tell you that this was really hard. This was really hard for the judges. We were very impressed with everybody's presentation, and y'all did an awesome job. So this is very difficult, but we do have some winners selected. So I'm going to start with our honorable mention. Honorable mention meaning, in this case, fourth place. And that goes to Alex. Alex did a wonderful job with his presentation, and congratulations, Alex. In third place, I don't think she's here anymore. Yeah, in third place, Kavya did an awesome job with her presentation as well. And then in second and first place, very difficult choice, I'll have to tell you. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out first and second place. Second place was and goes to Pranav for his research presentation on HRV. And mild forms of exercise. Really compelling presentation. Great job. And finally, the first place goes to Ozzy. We felt that that presentation on sleep apnea and specifically CPAP and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was really compelling, well presented, and really an example of just a great piece of pitch presentation. So again, thank you everybody. You all did a great job. Our first place went to Ozzy, second place to Pranav, third place to Kavya, and an honorable mention to Alex.